right, Jays lose 7-3, and then Jays win 3-2 to close out the 4-game set in Minneapolis. A whole lot to get to, so let's get into it. First, let's talk about the new guys and their impact they had on this series, which was notable. First of all, Mitch White. Mitch White, pretty good returns, honestly, for a guy who was kind of like a 6th, 7th starter with the Dodgers, coming in here doing a spot start with a catcher who's never caught him before. I thought he did a reasonably nice job. I was astounded. Like, people have talked about how very similar he was to Ross Stripling in terms of makeup and everything else. I was astonished at how much he looked like Ross Stripling. Like, the same kind of pitch repertoire, his off-speed stuff kind of has the same shape. And, like, considering that Ross Stripling is an older player and a free agent after this year, I think the Mitch White acquisition is actually just the embodiment of the meme of, like, the kid being like, hey, can we have Ross Stripling? And mom's like, no, we have Ross Stripling at home. And Mitch White is Ross Stripling at home. And that might not even be a bad thing. That might be a really canny move by this front office to be able to acquire younger, cheaper Ross Stripling, who has the same kind of repertoire and generally has the same shape of pitches, and we kind of know what to do with him, and maybe that's great. Letting Ross Stripling walk at the end of the year is probably something that's going to happen because he's going to want a pretty big raise, and he's earned one, so good for him, but he's probably not going to get it here. So having Mitch White, who seems to be the same kind of player, that's nice. He did all right. I had low expectations for him. I was hoping for a little more length from him, but we ended up having to use the bullpen a lot, which was not great for a couple reasons. Zach Pop, on the whole, looked good. He looked young. He looked relatively unpolished. He looks like a guy who's going to have to, kind of get the last mile of his development, as it were, at the big league level, and sometimes that's going to be frustrating, but he's got good stuff. He's got high 90s fastball with some movement. I think there's a lot to like there. We'll see how he plays out for the rest of this year. It might not be high leverage stuff, which is unfortunate, but I can see him being a valuable piece in the future, so that's fine. Anthony Bass looks like a leveled up version of the guy that we saw a couple years ago in a Blue Jays uniform. He's not really spectacular, he's not really going to blow you away, but he's got good command of 3 different pitches, and he looks like he can get big league hitters out fairly consistently. He does probably give up a home run or two, and probably at some inopportune times. But I don't think he's a bad acquisition at all. I think he's going to work out just fine, and he lengthens out the bullpen, and that's what we're talking about. We need more innings that we can get out of this bullpen because it's been stretched pretty thin, if we're being honest with ourselves. And it got a little bit thinner in that 3rd game of the series, so I guess we should talk about that. Tim Meza came in with a deficit and grew that deficit and then got hurt, so that wasn't ideal. He's been very steady and very reliable, one of the better relievers we've had this year, so losing him, dislocated shoulder, ouch, that doesn't sound like it's like an overnight fix. He's only on the 15-day IL, so that's good, but he's on the 15-day IL. That's bad. So welcome back, Trent Thornton. Yeah. And I guess Matt Gage is back in the house too, because we need a lefty. Okay. I mean, get well soon, Tim. We love you. We need you. Please come back. David Phelps also kind of got roughed up in that game. I don't look too much into that. Every once in a while, every reliever has a bad night. David had a bad night. He's been a really key piece for us all year. I'm sure he'll be fine. But that put us in a position of this afternoon needing to win just to split this series, and it didn't look good for a while there. I'm going to skip all the other stuff except to say, yeah, Vlad looked really good in this series. Bo looked really good in this series. That time when he just kind of let a strikeout go by. Like, he's up there hacking all the time and let this... Never mind, I've already done that. On the whole, look at his numbers, lots of extra base hits from Bo. Maybe he's going to start coming around. That would be really nice. Whatever. That's not what we want to talk about. We got to talk about the thing. So the Blue Jays have let a 2-0 lead slip away. First, they had a hard time expanding that lead. They just couldn't do it. For whatever reason, they left a lot of runners on base. Well, not a lot of runners on base, but it felt like this was going to be a tight game, and every time they left a runner on base and didn't take advantage of a runner in scoring position, it felt like it was going to come back and bite us in the ass, and then it did. Kevin Gausman with another excellent performance, and then the bullpen kind of let things leak away a little bit. Nothing too egregious. Sometimes relievers give up runs, but in this case, they only had a 2-run cushion to work with, and the Twins chipped away at it enough to tie the game in the 9th inning. It could have been more, but the Blue Jays kind of got lucky to escape to extra innings in a tie game. And now we got to talk about the last of the new guys, Whit Merrifield. This was the guy that I was completely unsold on. I had no idea why we went and picked him up. I then saw lots of stats that indicated that his season has actually been better than the raw numbers would indicate. Apparently, every defender in baseball has turned into the best defender in baseball when Whit Merrifield is at the plate. I think he led the league in opposition outs above average, which means to play like The number of sensational plays that were made when he was at the plate is higher than anyone else in baseball. And like, okay, that explains some of it, I guess, but in reality, he looks like a guy who either wasn't trying very hard or wasn't very good anymore. But what Merrifield always can do, and honestly, what this Blue Jays team doesn't really have outside of Bradley Zimmer, who objectively sucks and we don't want to use him very often, Merrifield's got speed, man. This guy can run. And as we saw today, it's not merely the raw speed that counts, although that is nice. It's also the baseball IQ and the wherewithal to use that speed effectively. We saw what good base running looks like in this game. We saw what bad base running looks like in this game. In the 10th inning, you get the ghost runner on second base, the Manfred runner. It's still in play, and apparently that's just how it's going to be for a little while, so I guess I should stop talking about it. Anyway, Whit Merrifield was that ghost runner, having made the last out in the 9th. The mission for the Blue Jays was clear. Get him over, get him in, and it looks like they're able to do exactly that. One fly ball brings Merrifield to third base with one out, bringing Cavan Biggio to the plate, who then skies a medium-shallow fly ball to left field. That's not great, Cav. You needed to get it deeper than that. But Whit Merrifield was brought to this team to run, and when you're in the opportunity to score the go-ahead run in the 10th inning, you don't wait around, you take your chances. So Whit was running there, 100%. And it looks like he is gunned down at the plate. A great throw from Tim Beckham, who's not even an outfielder. This was an outstanding throw from this guy. I didn't know he had it in him. I assumed that with Beckham out there, it was going to be kind of like a noodle arm thing right playing. No, it was on the money and on time. A great play there. Whit can run, and he made it close, but it looked like the throw beat him. But hang on. Gary Sanchez is, bad. He's bad defensively. Now, most of the time, that badness takes the form of not being in a full, proper catcher's squat. Buck Martinez has had about 4,005 rants about how Gary Sanchez, in particular, goes down to one knee because, I don't know, he doesn't feel like going down to the full squat. He doesn't block the ball. He kind of lets it go by him if it's in the dirt. Buck's not a fan. But in this case, his badness took another form here, and I'm not going to say it's uncommon because I think this play happens several times a year, but it doesn't happen every day. I don't know. Apparently the rule is you have to create a lane for the base runner to be able to score until you have the ball in your possession. Once you have the ball, you can then enter the lane to attempt to tag the runner, but you can't camp out there and wait for him to hit you. And there are several still shots that showed what the review crew was looking at, which is Gary Sanchez, but while the ball is still like maybe 4 or 5 feet out from him, he's clearly going to catch it. He knows he's going to catch it, but he hasn't got it in his possession yet when he starts to do the kneel down block home plate maneuver, because Whit's basically on top of him at that point. Sanchez knows that he can't wait to catch the ball before he blocks the lane, because if he does, Merrifield's definitely going to get his leg under there, so he tries to have it both ways. He tries to start the lean down as he's catching the ball. He tries to kind of finesse it like that, which, I mean, good idea. The problem is it's illegal, so maybe it's not that good of an idea. Anyway, everybody in the world was convinced that the Blue Jays have been thrown out of the plate and were out of the inning, and then the Twins are going to have a golden opportunity to walk this thing off. Everyone agreed that that was the situation except the replay booth in New York, who overturned the call. The run was allowed to score. I think Minnesota might be on fire right now. It was a big moment. Merrifield said after the game that he saw that Sanchez was starting to block the plate, so he ran directly at him, not even trying to go at the plate, but so much as trying to go through Sanchez to make it more obvious on replay that that's what he was doing. He said he knew the rule, and he knew how Sanchez likes to operate. He tried to make it obvious. It was merely a question of whether or not they were going to enforce that rule, and today they did. So the Blue Jays have a 3-2 lead, taking it into the bottom of the 10th inning. Max Kepler is the Twins runner on second, and here we see the power of bad base running. The Twins half inning starts very similarly to the Blue Jays half inning, with a fly ball deep to the outfield. However, unlike Whit Merrifield, who knows what his job is there, I don't know what Kepler thought he was doing or thought he wasn't doing, but at a fly ball, I guess he thought it was like his team had the lead in the 6th inning or something, because he went halfway and then trotted back to second base. And it only looked like when he arrived at second base did he realize what he had done, because he kind of like put his hand on his helmet and it was kind of like, oh boy, yeah, Max, you needed to advance there, bud. That's bad. That's bad. They teach you that in Little League, man. You got to advance on that ball. Oh boy, that's rough. And I'm not saying that's what turned the whole game, but it kind of was, because if he'd been at third base, with one out, it's entirely possible that the defense is completely arrayed differently for the next batter who hit a ground ball to the right side. As it was, Cavan was kind of on that side anyway because he was sort of holding Kapler on, but he wouldn't have been there necessarily if there was a runner on third instead of second base, so that might have been a hit, which might have tied the game. I think that honestly changed everything. Like, baseball is such a great sport because so much of it can be explained in stats. Like, more of it can be explained in stats than almost any other sport. We have tried to have an analytic revolution in hockey, and to a certain extent it's worked. There are some things that are quantifiable in a more advanced way than they were in the days of yore. But it's really hard to quantify things like, yeah, this goalie's just gone superhuman for the next little while, so you're the better team, but you lose. Sorry about that. So, there's only so much quantifying that can really be going on there. But baseball seems to be solved in a way that no other sport is because it is a series of repeating one-on-one battles. There are only so many different kind of situations that can possibly arise. Every permutation of count, out, base runners, and spot in the lineup, pitchers and hitters. There's only so many permutations of those different one-on-one matchups that eventually, over a long enough timeline, you can kind of use data to almost predict the future, which is what analytics is really trying to do. But then you see a play like this, where, I guess there's sort of a stat for base running acumen, but not really, right? This is just like a guy just forgets that he's supposed to advance there, and he doesn't, and then his team loses almost as a direct result. And as we know from last year, Blue Jays fans, teams can make the playoffs or not make the playoffs on the basis of one run, and the basis of one game, and the basis of one play. I still believe that if the Blue Jays had made the playoffs last year, they had as good a chance to win the World Series as anybody. They were a really, really good team. And if the Twins are going to make the playoffs, let's be serious. In the AL Comedy Central, there's not too many teams that are going to dethrone them. But, if things go awry and they don't make the playoffs by one game, or they change their playoff opponent because they missed one game, this might be that game. Or conversely, if the Blue Jays and Mariners go right down to the wire and the Blue Jays end up winning the first seed in the wild card, thereby getting home field advantage for all 3 games of the wild card round, because Max Kepler forgot that he was supposed to advance to third base in early August. How can you not be romantic about baseball? So that brings us to the 2/3 of a season mark. I can't believe it. It feels like the season just started a week ago with the Blue Jays not really being able to hit for 6 weeks. Time is weird. Time is a flat circle that makes no sense. We are now sort of looking like a team that we were supposed to be. We are now looking like a team with a strong front end of the rotation, a middling back end of the rotation, a relatively deep but not especially devastating bullpen, and one of the best offenses in baseball with the potential to give us even more offense. They haven't even really hit their full stride yet. All that, and we're 12 games over 500, and with a comfortable lead. Well, 2-game lead on the first wild card. Yeah, that seems about right? And my favorite part. The Yankees' lead in the American League East is down to 9.5 games. Yes, single digits. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But, okay, it's fun to dream on, but it's not going to happen. But it could happen. Okay, now I'm done. Thank you very much for watching this video and channel, etc., etc. Like and subscribe, etc., etc. I will see you for the start of all of a sudden, scary series against the Baltimore Orioles in Camden Yards. They're not that good of a team. They're going to start to crater eventually, right? Maybe right now, right? Yeah. We'll see you tomorrow.